All right. Hello and welcome back to On the Hunt. This is your host, Hunted J. Today we're going to take a look at how WE could possibly lose their series against Young Generation. Now, I got a lot of great feedback from you guys for my video yesterday, and I want to thank you in the community. It's been really sweet. And one of the things that I saw was that a lot of people thought I was overrating Team WE. They weren't as good as everyone said they were, and interestingly enough, Team WE was one of the few teams that was a rank 1 seed that didn't lose a game. They went 4-0 in the group stage. Only C9 and Team WE did that. Hong Kong Attitude, of course, didn't even come first in their group, and Fnatic dropped a game to Young Generation. And yet, everyone's saying, a lot of people were telling me through the comments that WE actually looks pretty weak for a tier 1 seed as opposed to someone like Cloud9, who in pretty much every single game looked incredibly dominant. So what I'm going to take a look at today is how I think Young Generation could pull this upset in their best of 5 against Team WE. So first, I just want to start off and take a look at the drafts that both of these teams had in their 4 games in the group stage. And I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this one here between Team WE and Gambit as their 4th games, as it was kind of a joke game in my opinion when you have, support Nunu and mid Yasuo. Pretty much the only person who can get away with Yasuo right now in the mid lane was a rookie, and he's not even at Worlds. So I didn't really want to touch on it. The big thing was picks and bans, but even in this game, it's not really applicable. Moving on to the first match that these two teams had, Gambit and Team WE. Team WE is on the red side, and something that I've found is a constant on red side teams is when you look at the first 3 bans, is that Kalista and Sejuani are almost always there 100% of the time. That from the red side, Kalista's perma-banned. And basically, unless it gets through on the red side, it's going to be first picked by the blue team. We saw it get through about 2 times in group stage that I can think of, when White Lotus got a pentakill on it and Sneaky was able to get his hands on it for Cloud9 in their final game. And so that's something that's going to be key here, is in terms of bans on red side for each team, in terms of whether they want to let something like a Sejuani through. I doubt that we will see a Kalista let through in this entire series, given the fact that Mystic is WE's best player and someone they build entire comps around, and Big Koro is the guy that YG tends to build their comps around. A lot of people say that Big Koro and Palette are the best bot lane within their region of Vietnam. In fact, that they have a better bot lane than Gigabyte Marines, and that this team stacks up to them pretty well. So looking at it in this game against Fnatic, which was the big upset, Fnatic dropped their only game in the group stage. We saw this bot lane matchup with Varus Lulu going into Tristana Braum. Now, yes, the range support matchup is going to be the huge part of this, that Palette's playing Lulu into a melee champion like Braum. That being said, Rekkles and Jezz are very highly touted as a bot lane. As a highly touted bot lane, they should be able to handle a Varus Lulu lane, but they were solo killed in lane at least once and had a huge CS deficit, and were one of the big reasons why Young Generation was able to win this game. Another thing I want to touch on, besides just the bot lane matchup, is junglers, because Venus and Condi are going to be super, super huge in this series. Jumping back over to even the first game, even though I said the draft was kind of a joke, Condi played Gragas twice in the group stage. It was his most played jungler. Same could be said for Venus, who played it against Fnatic, and he played it against Chaos Latin Gamers in their opening series. So both junglers played Gragas twice, which I think is really important, because this already shows, with the fact that we're going to be seeing most likely constant Sejuani and Kalista bans on red side, that Gragas is going to be a very highly contested pick between these 2 junglers. Yes, we kind of already knew that based off of the World's meta, but this could be really swingy. Who are the other 2 junglers that these players played? Venus brought in the Lee Sin against Chaos Latin Gamers for their first win of the tournament, and then he played Nidalee in their first game against Fnatic. That, personally, if you watch the game, if YG's macro is better, Fnatic loses this game. In this game, we also have Null solo kill Caps in the mid lane. This guy had 2 fantastic games against Caps when he was on Syndra, and when he was on Kassadin when he wins off of the back door in the final push there. Meanwhile, Condi played Ezreal and Graves. 2 fairly aggressive picks. Odds are we aren't going to see the Graves brought out in this series. Once again, that was kind of a free game for them against Gambit when Gambit just decided to throw a bunch of more jokey picks into the mix and just tried to have a little bit of fun and try and cheese WE, which didn't work. So what do I think will be the big reason why YG is able to defeat Team WE going into this? I'm going to take a look at this Fnatic series here, and this game where Fnatic was upset by YG. YG plays to the mid and the bot side, because ever since bringing in Nocti instead of Ren, they've been able to leave Nocti on an island, and he's been able to show up, whether it be on Galio or whether it be on Cho'Gath, and he's been able to survive in lane, not get dove, and come into team fights and help the rest of his team. And so this allows Venus to try and track the enemy jungler and then help out Null and Big Coro and Pallet. Big Coro and Pallet have been great by themselves. They're going to have a huge task. Whether or not they're going up against Mystic and Ben or Mystic and Zero is going to be the big question here going into this matchup. But there's one thing for sure, Null should be able to hold his own against GA, and then if Venus can get his hands on something like Gragas, it's going to be really good for this team because he can show up early, he can have an effect in team fights. It's been his most played champion in the tournament, and I think that's going to be something that's going to be a huge pick for them. How I think YG needs to play to win is they need to play aggressive off the bat. Yes, Condi's a great facilitator for WE, and he's the one who can get them through the early game in order to hand it off to Mystic, and they're going to build these late game team fighty comps. YG, if they choose to draft like that, will not beat WE. What they should do is to continue to draft like they did in the second half of the tournament, where you can have these great skirmishy style comps, dive the backline type comps. In this matchup between YG and Fnatic, you have Galio, Kassadin, Gragas. Basically, what they're trying to do here is Kassadin's going to jump into the back line, Galio's going to ult on top of him, and you're going to hopefully be able to single out either Tristana or Syndra and make it a 4v5 almost instantly. Plus, with Varus and Gragas, you have the pick potential and single target potential where you could pick somebody off and then make a play 4v5. That's the type of comps I want to see out of YG. Alongside an aggressive early game jungler. I love seeing the Lee Sin or the Gragas out of Venus. I don't think the Nidalee is a pick that I would go back to, but bringing in Lee Sin, Gragas, or maybe even Kha'Zix if he sees a Ezreal picked by Condi on the other team, I think is really going to allow YG to try and play that early game aggressive style that they did against Fnatic and Chaos Latin Gamers in the second half of group stage. I think that's the only way that I can see them winning. I think it's going to be a 3-1 to Team WE, but if YG was able to at least take that one game, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope I see some aggression out of them and that they don't come in playing scared. This has been Hunted J. Thanks for tuning in, guys.